Hey gamers, what's up? Muzz here from L1 Games once again with a video for you. Today I wanted to talk about clone systems, what I carry, why I carry it, my thoughts on the systems, and whether I think they're worth having. So getting right into it, there are a few systems that I carry here at the store that I actually have quite a demand for. People seem to like them a lot. There are a lot of people who don't get into collecting, who don't necessarily want to have the original systems. They just want something to play their old games on, or to buy new old games and play them on, and just the hardware isn't an issue for them. So I carry the Hyperkin systems, the Retrons, and I don't know, I think they're the ones I like the best. I could do Retrobit. I actually have an account with Yobo. I don't like the Yobo system so much, so I thought I'd walk through some of the ones I carry and what I think of them in general. The first one is of course the Retron system, and it's the very most basic of the clone systems. You've seen something like this a million times. It's just a new system that plays original NES games. Most of the systems I've seen actually even look like this, even if they're made by another company. They're probably all from the same molds and just mass produced. This uses your standard composite video output and displays on a standard definition television or anything with a composite video input. Overall, it does the job that it's supposed to do, and I carry these for the people who just need a basic console and don't want to fork up for an original NES. A step up from that console is the Retron HD, and this is a newer console that plays the original cartridges on an HDMI system. So a lot of TVs these days don't actually have the composite video inputs, and I've been running into that more and more lately with people. So it's good to have this because it does the same job, but it does it on an HD TV. It upscales to 720, and it actually does a pretty good job if you just want to play the old school games on your HD TV. So I carry this, and these have been very popular with people. They really seem to like them. Next up, we have the Retron 2. This is your basic Nintendo, Super Nintendo combo console. You'll see these all day long, again, from different distributors, different manufacturers, and it's the basic composite video output, plays Nintendo and Super Nintendo cartridges, and does the job. I've actually sold tons of these. People really seem to like them, and it's good to have two consoles in the space of one, or really just to invest the money into this and have two consoles where, you know, buying a Nintendo and a Super Nintendo would be a lot more expensive. And again, a lot of people just want to play the old games, and if they don't care about having an original Nintendo and an original Super Nintendo in the house, this is actually a pretty good option. Now the next step up is the Retron 3, and this one is exactly like the Retron 2, except it adds the Sega Genesis to the mix, and also it comes with two wireless controllers. Now originally I wouldn't carry the Retron 3 because the wireless controllers it came with were infrared, and I don't know if you remember infrared controllers from your childhood, where you had to point the controller directly at the TV in order for it to make a connection, and there was lag, and if you moved away or pointed it away from the TV it would stop functioning. They were just terrible. But Hyperkin a few years back went with the 2.4 gigahertz wireless controllers, and these are actually very responsive. I mean, I would say they're just as responsive as, say, like an Xbox 360 controller. And I've carried it ever since they did that, and I've always had, you know, good reviews from my customers. People seem to like the system, so I carry it. Now I don't personally like the system. I don't like the design. This isn't the system I want in my collection. But for that, again, the average person who just wants a Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Genesis all in the space of one at a reasonable price, this is a pretty good option. It also uses the composite video output, so it's not going to do an HD picture or anything, but for the people who just want to play the games, this will totally do the trick. Now next up is the Mega Retron HD. This is one of Hyperkin's newer consoles. It's just a Sega Genesis, but it does the HDMI out, it upscales to 720, it does 16:9 or 4:3, it does a lot of really cool things. It also has a very decent controller. I'm really impressed with the controller on this. It's a cool 6-button design, but it has almost a Sega Saturn controller shape to it, which is really cool. Overall, this is a really good option for someone who just wants to play Sega Genesis games at a good price on their HD TV. So I've gotten a good response from customers on this one, and I'm actually very pleased with it overall. Now next up I have the Super Retron HD, and this is a really cool console. It basically does what the Mega Retron HD does, but for Super Nintendo. It does the HDMI out, it upscales to 720, it has the 16:9 4:3 switch, so it does all that stuff, and overall it's really cool. And for the price, you can't beat it. I mean, you could go out and get like the Super NT, but that's a really expensive console. And I don't think a lot of like casual gamers or people who just want to play their old school games are willing to fork up that kind of money for a system that does what this system does. So I really enjoy this system. The customers really seem to like it a lot. It comes with 2 controllers, which is awesome. And overall, I'm pretty pleased with the way it's sold, the response it's gotten, and just the system in general. Next up, the Retron 77. Now I've seen a lot of reviews about this one online, people talking a lot of stuff about it, some negative, some positive. I gotta lean with the people on the positive side. I've actually put a lot of time into the Retron 77, and overall I've had a really fantastic experience with it personally. I've used one out front as a demo and to test cartridges. We recently went through hundreds of cartridges and tested, bagged, and priced them all for the front for kind of a new system I'm doing with the Atari 2600 carts. And this has been an invaluable resource. So my personal experience with this system and its functionality has been wonderful. But even more so, I think as a console, it's really good. I get people in all the time who just don't understand how they can hook an Atari up to their new TVs, which is actually a simple thing, but it's confusing to a lot of people who don't really know gaming or how their consoles hook up and everything. In regards to clone systems overall, I really think this is one of my favorites. It does a really good job and I like how it performs. So I'm pretty pleased to be selling it. And last but not least, the Retron 5. Now this is probably one of the ones I've seen most about online. People talk about it and review it. I've seen tons of negative, I've seen tons of positive. It's just one of those consoles that has gotten a lot of notice, and I think that's because of everything it does and what's expected of it as a system in general. The Retron 5 plays Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Famicom, Super Famicom, Mega Drive, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. And with an attachment that you can buy for it separately, it'll play Master System cards, and Game Gear games. So this console has a lot of functionality. On top of that, doing the HDMI out, upscaling, sound enhancement, and everything else it does. Save states, filters. You can do a lot with this system. You can even load English language ROM patches onto an SD card and put them in it and play your Super Famicom games that were originally in Japanese in English. And I think that's because it pulls the ROM off the cartridge and emulates it to play it on the TV. And I think that's a big problem that people have with the system in general, that it does use emulation the way it does. But personally, I have no problem with that. Again, it's just a matter of having one console in the space of 9 and being able to utilize my space better. In the end, I think the Retron 5 is a good system for what it is and for what it does. It's awesome that you can fit 9 consoles in the space of 1, and a lot of people like that option because space is at a premium for some people in their collections or just on their entertainment systems in general. I've had one of these on display in the store since it launched, and it's run basically 11 hours a day for the past few years, and it's been a champ, so my experience with it has been good. I also have one at home in my personal system, which doesn't get nearly as much use as the one here at the store does, but has also performed well for me. So my personal experience with it has been good, and I have no real complaints. I have had a couple come back to the store. One had a broken controller, and I just swapped out the controller for the guy, and he was happy. He still comes in and buys games for it, in fact. And I had another one come back, I think, with a broken controller port. So I swapped out the system for that guy, and he was totally happy. But I have sold hundreds of these, and I've had no real problems with them at all. So I don't really get a lot of the negativity I see about it, but in general, I think people should give it a shot because it's a great way to play your old school games, have an old school collection, but still have a new piece of hardware to play it on. So what's my opinion on clone systems in general? And not just the Hyperkin systems, I'm talking about overall. And you'd think because I sell them that maybe I'm going to talk them up and say that they're better than they are or whatever the case may be, but that's not really it at all. I do like the systems. I think they serve a purpose, and I think they're kind of a necessity in this day and age for people who want to play old school games but maybe don't care so much about collecting or hardware. But I always speak as a gamer first, not as a store owner first. This channel is about the store, but it's also about my real opinions on things. And I will always choose to have original hardware over a clone system, under most circumstances. But there are times where having like a Retron 5 hooked up at the house and playing my games on a console that's built for 9 systems rather than just one is really, really convenient. I don't want to do a lot of swapping all the time, and it's nice. I don't care so much about emulation. I don't think it's a big deal if this color is washed out or if that sound isn't absolutely perfect. I'm not totally that kind of purist. I am a collector though, and I appreciate having the original consoles, and appreciate having new consoles that allow me to utilize my original collection without putting wear and tear on my original consoles or pulling them out of their original boxes, and that makes me very happy. So there is absolutely a place for clone consoles in any collection, whether you're a hardcore purist or not. I just think you have to be willing to take a step back and look at it from like just a larger perspective and say, oh, I just want to play the old games, and maybe leave my original console on display in my game room rather than breaking it out, pulling it down, and having to hook it up every single time I want to use it. I mean, imagine having 9 consoles hooked up or just having 1 console hooked up. It's a pretty easy decision for me. It's also the reason I have an original Xbox modified and stuck in my collection, because it allows me the opportunity to try out games, play old school games, whatever, and not have to break out old systems or hunt down games. You know, I like emulation just like the next guy because it allows me those opportunities to do it. But what I don't like about that is it doesn't allow me to collect physical games. And as a collector whose love for physical media is very deep, I really want to have those pieces of history, and these clone systems allow me to do that. So again, there's a place for everything. There's a place for emulation and ROMs, there's a place for clone systems, and it doesn't have to conflict with your love for original hardware or video game history. So that's my opinion, and that's it for now, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon so you'll get updates when I release videos in the future. And you can follow me on Twitter at L1Games. So I'm going to go open up the store and get busy. I will catch you all soon. Thanks for watching.